Hey everyone, Tina Hogan Grant here with my Cuppa A Natter. I like to do these twice a month on a Monday. I like to invite authors into my home. We talk about books, writing, life as an author, and whatever comes to mind. And this evening, I have the wonderful Melissa Trombetta joining me all the way from New York. How are you this evening, my dear?
I'm great, Tina. How are you? It's wonderful
I
to see you.
am
Thank
good.
you for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you. I booked these quite a bit in advance. So I
Yes.
remember when I booked to Donny Ruby, who I want to say a huge thank you to. She runs the Novels and Latte group
Yeah,
on
exactly.
Facebook. She referred you to me. So a big shout out to Donny Ruby for doing that. But it was like 6 months ago, I
Yeah,
think,
it's
when I
been a
booked.
while. Yes.
It has. So I'm excited. And before we get started, if you
Yeah.
could just give me a little background and the readers, a little background to yourself, whatever you feel comfortable with sharing online.
Sure. So, Melissa Trombetta, this is my debut novel. I'm from New York, born and raised in upstate New York. I live down just outside of New York City now. My background, honestly, I'm a finance executive for a pharmaceutical company, so totally unrelated to sort of my writing life. I started writing. Well, I had, a sort of fits and starts, but never a novel. It was always, things like blog posts, more self-deprecating humor type blog, where I would sort of share family stories. And I we can get into this at some point, but I decided that I was going to write a novel. I had a certain inspiration that we can talk about, but so yeah, so I live up, in New York. I, work. I've got two kids. My daughter is now a junior in college. She's in nursing, and my son is a senior in high school. And so we're going through the whole college tours now, and hoping to get through that as quickly as possible, because for anyone that has kids going through college, it's a painful experience until they figure out where they're going to go. So
You have
that's
two
kind of where we are
teenagers.
right now.
You have two teenagers.
Two teenagers. Well,
Oh, I
no, my
remember,
daughter just turned 20. I keep forgetting. I keep forgetting that she is no longer a teenager. So,
remember
yeah.
those years. Oh, those are tough years, but I'm sure, the college and everything. Yeah, I remember those years. But 20 years
Yeah.
old now. Oh my goodness. My goodness.
20. Yep.
Wow. And
So,
I thought I knew. This is your debut.
it is. It is.
Congratulations. And when did this come
Thank
out?
you. In April. So, it does have I specifically wanted it to come out in April because it is uh Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And a big part of the story is my main character is sexually assaulted on a college campus. And so I wanted to coordinate it with that month and some of the other organizations that I was working with. It worked very well into sort of their platform as well.
Oh wow. So does this book have, I guess, some trigger points in the book?
It does. It does. So it does start with it starts actually from the assailant's point of view, right off the bat. And it does describe a sexual assault from the male assailant's point of view.
Oh
And that
wow.
was important to me. I'll say, some people, I've had questions as far as why did I do it that way, right out of the gate. And so, and I'm starting to ask my own questions, so I can, so I
No,
can
no,
hold
no,
off.
it's good. You're good.
Um, so I started that way because, so I have multiple points of view in the book, four actually, because I have three characters, but then also from the assailant's point of view right off the gate. And so it was important to me to give him a voice so that we understood his perspective and sort of the cruelty and what he was doing, and that we weren't blaming the female main character and starting to question her. If it started with her, I was worried that it was going to um that the reader was going to say, you had been drinking, what were you wearing, and going into that line of sort of thought. I wanted them to see the cruelty of it right off the bat from the assailant's point of view, and then how does that lead to trauma and healing, and Nicole's story going through the book.
And how old is Nicole?
Nicole is 21, 22. She was just about to graduate from college, and it happened sort of that last week during finals when people are partying and there's, some people are still studying. It's right before graduation, so it's meant to be this sort of celebratory time where maybe you kind of let your guard down a little bit. The campus isn't as full, and so it was deliberate in that way. It does take place in the 90s, which is when I went to college, so it's sort of a write what you know. So I was so I pulled in from all of my memories of going to school in upstate New York in the 90s. And so it's very visual for me to write that way, of just places that I know and that I've spent a tremendous amount of time. And so that was that's when it started. So it was she's mid-20s, and it follows her for 2 years of just her healing journey from when she was sexually assaulted to really where she goes through this whole empowerment cycle and learns how to trust herself, her gut, trust others, enter into relationships with people that she does know, that she doesn't know, and then how is she sort of able to pay that forward to other women at some point. So it really does go through her full journey for 2 years.
What a strong message this book holds. It really does. I mean, the subject matter is very heavy.
Yes.
But when you think about, I'm thankful I've never experienced such a an ordeal. But when you think about women that have, this book could really, really help them.
So my first, and I agree with you, and I will tell you, when I went into this, I did not appreciate that it was going to resonate. The one person that I wanted it to resonate with was my daughter. So I told you my daughter is 20. I wrote this book. I started writing this book, and really where I was at a point where I was completely projecting my worries about her going off to college. So I said we live in New York. She was going to school at University of Tennessee. She doesn't go there now, but she was there for 2 years. And so, 6 months before she's leaving, I'm having, these moments of like, talking to my daughter, and like, we need to talk, Alice. Like, we need to, let's talk about what the realities of being on a college campus. Let's, and she's just like, not my story. I don't need this, and really just not wanting to listen to me or have a conversation. And I get it, right? Like, if I'm spewing stats at her, she's not going to want to hear, it doesn't resonate with her. So I was like, okay, well, I can tell a good story. So what I did was I decided that I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a story, a fictional story, but so that I can somehow get to my daughter. And so maybe if I wrote it as a story, she, it would be, she'd internalize it more than just having a conversation with me. I didn't want to give her a nonfiction book, because there's a lot of those also, of like people's experiences, because she would quickly say to me, which I've tried, it's not my story. It's not going to happen to me. I'm smarter than that. Things that you just don't really know until you're on a college campus and you're in this kind of it could be anywhere, but I put it on a college campus because that's what my fears, what I was projecting on her. And so I wanted her to understand that. And so again, I'm a finance major, so that's my background. And so I dabbled in writing, and I was so passionate about this. And I think that was like what was really drove me to sort of get to the end of this book, because it took me a year. Was I hired a writing coach. I asked for help, of people to teach me the art of writing. And I spent a year doing that because I had this story and I was so passionate about it. I'm like, how can I get this out there where people are going to listen? Mainly my daughter. And then if I could reach a second person, great, and I have reached, hundreds of people and have talked to people about this. And it's been so overwhelming for people to, they might have daughters, they've had experiences themselves, they know somebody where they judge them, a family member where they've judged them because they put the ownership on the victim, and it just, all I wanted to do is open up conversation, is really like what, this is one view. This is one, I wanted to make it as realistic as possible for her feelings. And so I did a lot of research and talked to a lot of people to make sure that somebody couldn't poke a hole and say that's unrealistic, right? Like that's not how a victim is going to react. It's if you go to a self-defense class, like I want to understand what's taught in a self-defense class, and that's one of the things that I actually did as part of it, just as much as you would for like grammar and right, like all of the research. I wanted to make sure that I validated it and that it was realistic, so that didn't shadow the message at all of what I was trying to get out.
Yeah, there's no fluff. It's completely raw. I mean, that's what I like about it. And I also like the fact that you took on this subject matter, because many writers are afraid to go there. Not only because it is a very sensitive subject, but it's a trigger, like we mentioned earlier, but it's also people afraid that they might offend somebody. It's just a very delicate subject. So
yes,
well done, bringing it full circle and putting it out there. I think it's a brilliant idea to get through to your daughter. Now, did she read the book?
So she has not read it cover to cover, but she was such a part of it. I think she feels like she read it, right? Because I sort of kept her in the entire process, because if she again was going to ignore me, I'm like, well, okay, I want you to know, what am I doing? Here's what I'm finding, and so she essentially, maybe through osmosis has sort of, read the whole thing, but not cover to cover. But I will tell you that dozens of her friends have, and I have also given it away to like her suite mates and her friends that that she's worked with, to make sure that we continue to get the word out. I mean, I just keep ordering boxes of them and handing them out to like college kids,
Awesome.
just so that I mean, at my daughter's new school, they have the free library, like the little houses that they have, and so I keep stocking it, and they keep disappearing. So it's great, right? I just, so that I can get the word out and again, create the awareness.
What a great. I mean, it's a cause too. I mean, you're writing this for a cause. You have a mission, and the mission is to bring awareness to college kids that this can happen to you. Yes. And I think it's spectacular. I do want to pause. We have readers here that I've been ignoring. I want to pop up and say hello to them. Again, I am talking to Melissa Trombetta from New York. If you have any questions for Melissa, her book is called I Thought I Knew, and we're going to be discussing that. If you have any questions for Melissa, go ahead and put them in the comments, and I will get to as many as I can. Who do we have joining us? We have Cheryl Green. She says, good evening. I have not read any book by Melissa. I am excited to this chat. And then we have Karen is here. She says hello. And we also have Alicia. Hello, Alicia. Just going to go down the list. We have Virgie.
Lisa just actually won my book in a giveaway. She just read, and she's awesome.
Oh, sweet!
She just got it in the mail, and she's like, I couldn't stop. Like, so that's great.
I think Lisa won. She won a book from this chat about a month ago, or maybe the last chat. Recently, she won a book, so she's been doing good.
It pays.
And then she has, and then we have Karen Lloyd Geeling. She says hello, Tina and Melissa. Let me just scroll down and see who else we got. Lori here, Lori Chesco, and Karen says congratulations on your debut.
Thank you.
I got some questions that are going to pop up in a bit. Hold on one second. I'm missing some comments. And Connie Rosenberg is here. She says hello. Do you have a copy of your book next to you so we can see your beautiful cover?
I do.
Oh, that's gorgeous. I love the pop of the sun. Is it a sunflower, correct?
Yeah. It is a sunflower, yes. So my niece had just graduated from design school in Maine, and I wanted to keep it in the family. And so I actually asked her to design the cover. So her and I worked together because I wanted her to be able to sort of start to build out her portfolio. And so in the book, sunflowers are significant for the main character. And I specifically wanted the cover, this might be getting a little too deep, but I wanted the cover to show that the sunflower is starting to come around. So it's sort of showing progress
Okay.
of my character. So it's very symbolic of the main character is the sunflower, and it does have a special meaning to her, and you can read that in the story.
And
But
you
it's, you know, sort of her evolution.
turn around
Yeah.
when she grows. And you said your niece designed that cover?
Yes. Yep.
How old is your niece?
She's 20, she's probably 27 now. She had
She's
just recently
talented. That's a
designed, yeah,
beautiful cover.
so she works now for a design firm up in Maine. And she had just graduated. And so I wanted, you know, I didn't really, again, know sort of who I could go to, and I didn't know what the product I was going to get. And I knew that if I worked with her, you know, I could have sort of the back and forth because I was new to all of this process. And it also gave her an opportunity, and I could support her, you know, as she was developing her portfolio.
She did a fabulous job. All right, I am going to scroll back up, and I'm going to pop up some of these questions that I saw when I was
Sure.
scrolling down. Let's start with, these might have been asked a few minutes ago, but I'm going to pop them up. Okay, one here from Karen. She is asking, what inspired you to write?
So, as I said, so my daughter was a big part of what inspired me to write. I will say, you know, so this particular story was definitely my daughter, but I will say that once I got the bug, it really does sort of get in you, and so I continue to write beyond this book just because I now it sort of fuels me. I would say that I'm actually better and more creative at work because I write so much creatively. So I didn't appreciate I saw that in the past when I would do my blog, where it just sort of makes you think differently and just sort of
Mhm.
sentence structure. And so as I'm writing, you know, a financial press release, you would think that like a romance would help, but it really does with just how you can really hit points very quickly and succinctly, where you want to sort of draw in a reader. It applies to both, and so you're sort of
Yes.
using a similar muscle. One's more creative than it is technical, but
Mhm.
I have seen it actually help me significantly in my other job, my job that yeah,
Yeah, I think writing,
my day
writing
job.
is good therapy. If you're down, it picks you up, and it just keeps that creative juices flowing. I
Totally.
think it really does. Alicia is asking, who has been your hardest character to write about and why?
So the hardest character to write, I would say was Nicole, the main character in this book, um, because I would say that it was very personal, because a lot of like her story is my personality, my story, and so writing that and having it be, you know, authentic, and you know, again, I was new to writing, and developing a character and developing like yourself on paper, I would say is very hard to do.
Mhm.
So that was I think that was probably the hardest. Some of the other ones that are based off of people that I know, I felt those were way easier, you know, to just sort of like then it was like, oh yeah, well, I know exactly how this person would respond if I'm like channeling, you know, my dad or my husband, you
Right.
know, as I'm
Yeah,
like
because you
writing
know
it,
them.
right?
You
Like
know them.
you just know them from that way versus I don't know how like all of a sudden you just don't realize like how would you think in this kind of a situation, and then you got to put it on paper so that
Yeah,
I would say it was harder to do it that way.
you have to pretty much put yourself in the story and be that person while you're writing about it. And one of my
Totally.
questions is, and I'm going to bring it up now, is, we have a plotter and a panster when we write our
Yeah.
books. I'm a panster. I don't plot anything. I just sit down and I let the characters tell me what's going on. When it came to this book, I thought I knew. Did you do a lot of plotting, or did you find yourself just sitting down and letting the story unfold, which would be
I
a
would
pan?
say that for I thought I knew, it definitely was I plotted it. But I would say that it started to take a life of its own. So things happened that I didn't necessarily plot out. but I
Okay.
knew the beginning and the end. And so those things stayed. But in between, I would say it probably meandered a little bit. With the book that I'm writing now, I decided to not spend my time doing the plotting because it just takes so much time to do that. And then if I ended up not actually using it, I'd rather just be writing.
Exactly.
So I'm taking sort of the pantser approach,
Yeah.
and I'm loving it because I actually am not feeling like I have to stick to a script. Like you know what I mean? That you're just sort of like, it's like, well, no, I didn't want the character to do that, but it's doing
Yeah.
it. So
And,
I
you know,
guess that's where I'm going.
yeah, and it's the character stories that you're telling, so let them tell the story. You know,
Exactly.
I mentioned this many times in these chats. I tried plotting a book. It went in totally the other direction. The character says, I would never do that. Fine. I'm not plotting anymore. I'm not going to waste my time. So now I am strictly a pantser, and whatever happens, happens. I'm not going to question it because
Yep.
the character's telling me this is what is going on. So, okay, it's your story. But back to, and I had another question in my head, and it just totally, oh, I know what it is now. The title, I thought I knew. Very
Yep.
interesting title, very intriguing. I got a couple of questions with it. Number one, did you have the title before you started writing, or did it come to you while you were writing? Because I love the title.
I had the title before I started writing, because it really does encompass, I thought so the character thought she knew, where she was going in her career. She thought she knew where, she was graduating. She thought she knew the people in her life. So there's a lot of things where you sort of approach, where she was approaching her life with all these assumptions because she's very much a planner and a type A, and she's an accountant. And so she had all of this planned out, and her life got turned upside down on her. And so she didn't know. Right. And then she kind of had to figure it out and work her way out of it. And so, she thought she could handle everything on her own. She learns very quickly. That and it's actually turning out to be a theme in a lot of so I'm on my third book. I'm writing my third book. And so a theme is that you actually can heal more quickly if you're able to ask for help. And that seems to
So,
be, so first, I don't know if that's sort of my own therapeutic, like just teaching myself, it's very cathartic for me to sort of appreciate that, sort of, I thought I could do all of this on my own. And to get my message out, I needed to hire a coach. I needed to work with people. I needed to take feedback, all of those things that, it's sort of the title resonates with me in my life, but then also in Nicole's story in this book.
yeah, sometimes people just have too much pride to ask for help. They
Yep.
really do. And even with what happened to Nicole, sadly, some people won't talk about it because they're ashamed or whatever reasons. But it's very sad that they just clam up and won't talk about it. And it's the same
Right.
situation when you talk about asking for help. It opens up other doors.
Exactly. Well, because there's always the fear, with victims of sexual assault, it's sexual violence, is that, they are afraid to be re-victimized, or they've got shame, or there's, so much that goes into it, that they're not comfortable. And so what was interesting, you and I had talked earlier, briefly, and you had talked about sort of different points of view. And I have 3 points of view, really 4 points of view in this book. And, one of them is her sister. And it was important for me to write the sister because I wanted to have a woman's point of view and reaction to her sister telling her that she was sexually assaulted, and sort of what kind of thought process does she go through. And so I did want to see it from a number of different angles, because it's not always, if somebody tells you that they've been sexually assaulted, that you're going to be, in experiences that I've, talked to people and, just own experiences that I've had in my life, it's that they're not always going to be receptive or there for you. They could be very judgmental. And so I wanted, again, that to be realistic, of like, it's not going to, you're not always going to find your support system, but you can't, but you have to keep looking, because you will heal faster, when you find the right resources and the right, and
just
sort of
talking
right help.
about it. And just
Exactly.
talking about it. And I like the
Exactly.
fact that you do write this book in more than one voice. like you said, it gives yourself as a writer, but also the readers, different perspectives of the
Exactly.
character. You know, most books that I've read are either in third person or first person. So to see this, I think is brilliant. I think it's really good, and it gives you more of the story too. It does.
Yes.
I want to pop up some more questions. One
Great.
was from where'd it go? Where'd it go? We already know about your daughter being involved in the book.
Yep.
Laurie wants to know where'd it go? Come on, Laurie. There it is. Here. Oh no, that's the wrong one. We already answered that one. Laurie was out here. No, the questions are going faster. Okay, here we go. This is Karen. Do your characters touch you when you are not writing?
Absolutely. It's so I
Love
dream
it.
about them. I had no idea that this was like a thing. And now, I mean, I wake up and my characters are talking to me, it like you were saying earlier, Tina, it's just you let your characters kind of take you where you're going. And they absolutely. And I wish that I, lived in the town that I just wrote about, because I want the bar, I want the characters, I want to know them. I mean, it's kind of it's nothing that I've ever experienced in my life, and it is like rewarding and create. I mean, it's so I don't know, I can probably geek out about it quite a bit of just it. I just have never felt anything like this in my life, where I've got like people talking to me and telling me like what their story, and I'm like able to write it. Like I feel
Yeah,
like it's kind
I
of a
love it.
gift.
Absolutely love it.
It's
And I find them just popping into my head unexpectedly. Like, okay. And it's just today, I finished a chapter on my work in progress. And it's a scene that I'm doing. And then today there was one of the characters talking to me like, well, you didn't put this in, this happened. Okay, then I'll go back to that chapter and
I'll
I'll
be
put that in.
back.
I love that. I love the way they taught you. And I want to ask you this. When you said you're working on book number 3, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I don't plot, you don't plot now. For me, the hardest part of writing a book is that first paragraph. It
Yeah.
is the hardest part for me, and I will sit there. I have sat there for half a day, just waiting for my characters to get this thing rolling, because I'm like, okay, I know that I'm going to be writing your story, blah 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 blah, but where do we start?
Yep.
And I'm just like lost until I actually get that voice rolling in my head on how to
Uh-huh.
start this story. Once I get past that first paragraph, it's a piece of cake. I mean, it's not a piece of cake, but now I like
They
I can
they
churn
just start
out my
talking.
words. Yeah, I don't know where the story's going, but at least I'm on the right path. But to get that first paragraph down for me is really hard.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. It's I find when I take a shower is when, like, so I've got nothing, like I have no technology in my hand, I've got no pen, paper, whatever. That's when all of a sudden, like, things, like if I'm stuck on something, if I take a shower, it seems to work. Or if I listen to other books, I listen to a lot of audio
Mhm.
audibles, and so that's another one, because it's just someone sort of like talking, and then it almost like wakens like other thoughts in my head.
Right.
So I would say, yeah, the shower and audibles for me.
There you go. Perfect. Is this book I Thought I Knew, is it a standalone or is there going to be other books to follow?
So it's interesting. So the second book that I wrote, that's sort of in process, and then I decided to make that one into a series. But they all take place in upstate New York, and I Thought I Knew took place in the 90s. And so I will say that I planted one of my characters from I Thought I Knew in my next book,
Oh,
so that
sweet.
I could sort of take, stories. The sister in I Thought I Knew, Jamie, I have placed her in my second book, so that if I wanted to sort of tell her story, I could tell her story 25 years later, 30 years
There you go.
later.
It's perfect.
So
Yeah.
I did do that, but I am doing a series just because I have too many thoughts sort of in my head, that I had to break it out into different characters and sort of like their stories. So I decided to do it that way, and try a series this time.
I love that. Okay, so you've got one out. I Thought I Knew, and you said you've written 2 other books. Are they going to be published anytime soon?
Well, so I am going to start the query process for my second book. I'm not done with the third one. I'm gonna try it again. It's a very humbling experience, but I do feel really good about the second book and sort of like what the series would be. That I'm gonna go into the query process and try to find an agent and try to do traditional publishing. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I believe in the stories. It's very, feedback that I've received has been that, they're entertaining and I have thoroughly enjoyed writing them. And so I want to continue to get them out. Because there's lessons in there in the books that, that I write. I like to sort of have not just have it be, a romance or, I do want to have an element of education. And so, and I thought I knew, yes, it's about sexual assault, but it was also a big part of her empowerment journey was this program called Model Mugging, which I took part of in for my 30th birthday. My mother got me a she paid the tuition for me to take this course for my 30, so 20 years ago, up in Boston, and it's a complete immersion class where you spend 3 days essentially learning sort of the psyche of assailants. You learn sort of what they do. How do you channel your adrenaline if you're in a situation, and really just complete self-defense and it's specifically geared towards women. And that was part of Nicole's empowerment journey of how she was able to trust herself again. And I wanted to sort of educate people on that program, and women specifically, of just having the awareness, knowing this program is out there. And so in the books, as I write them, I find sort of these kinds of nuggets of ways that my readers can sort of develop themselves further in a unique way. I didn't want to just write somebody sitting across from a therapist. I wanted to make it so that it was a little bit more unique of something that maybe they weren't as aware of.
I love that. That's great. All right, we're in for a treat. We're going to take a little break because you're going to read a small excerpt from your book.
I am.
I love it when, and the readers do too, when authors read from their work. So I'm going to hand it over to you and
Okay.
read to us.
All right. So this is from Nicole's point of view, and this is she has decided to take so that was a good setup. Thank you. The model mugging class. And so this is her going to it's at the YMCA. So this is just her sort of walking into the YMCA. She's made the decision that she wants to take this class. And so this is just a small excerpt just so you can understand sort of my writing style. Jessie, she refers to Jessie in this excerpt. That is a college friend and potential love interest. And then her sister is Jamie. So just so you see, as I mentioned these characters. And I write it in the third person. So Nicole thundered up the crumbling front stairs of the YMCA and approached the makeshift front desk, 3 metal tables shoved together in a U shape. Behind it, she found a skinny teenage boy wearing a black Stone Temple Pilots t-shirt and his eyes closed tight. His whole body was wed to the music coming through his Walkman, and based on his hand gestures, he appeared to be in the middle of a drum solo. After a few beats, Nicole knocked lightly on the desk to get his attention. His eyes opened with surprise. "Oh, hey, sorry," he chuckled. "Can I help you?" he asked, sliding the headphones around his neck. The green lights from the small fake Christmas tree on top of the desk shined on his pimply face, making him look sickly. "Yes, can you please tell me where I can find the model mugging class?" she asked, nervously hovering over the desk. Sure." While Nicole impatiently waited for the boy to flip through the clipboard of papers, she re-inventoried her tote to make sure nothing magically fell out of it between the car and the lobby. In the distance, chirping sneakers, screaming kids, and bouncing balls echoed from the nearby gym. "It's downstairs in the basement," the little drummer boy finally said, sliding his headphones over his ears before she could ask how to get there. "Never mind, I'll figure it out." She hurried down the hallway to find a set of stairs next to the glass wall displaying the pool area. A faint chemical smell drifted into the corridor. Chlorine, swimming. "Jessie, A shiver ripped through her when she remembered that he was taking scuba classes at the Y. Crap, what if I run into him? What if I run into each other? How will I explain while I'm here? She'd already lied to Jamie when she canceled their Sunday step class, telling her that she had to work, too ashamed to tell her sister she was learning to channel her fears. If she ran into Jesse, she'd have no choice but to lie to him, too. Down in the basement, the long passage was poorly lit. Dim fluorescent lights flickered overhead. All doors along the wall were closed. There was no movement, just emptiness and silence. The little hairs on the back of her neck stood at full attention. It was the parking garage all over again. Nicole trickled down the hallway like a slow leak, dragging her fingertips along the cinder block wall, wondering if she was undergoing her first model mugging test. The chill of the foundation grounded her as adrenaline battered her interior. With each step, her knees became rubberier. If this is supposed to simulate a dark alley, they've nailed it. Halfway down the hall, she heard a faint cry of a woman. Eyes! Eyes? More yelling, no, 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 followed by a heavy thud. What is going on? She muttered, scrambling around the corner towards the commotion, worried the woman needed help. Nicole almost tripped over the leg of the easel that held a large white poster board outside of an open classroom door that read, "Welcome to Model Mugging," in green block letters. In the shadows of the artificial light of the classroom, Nicole paused to consider the use of welcome and mugging in the same salutation. Nowhere else would such a sign exist.
I love that. Thank you so much. I'm intrigued.
Absolutely.
Beautiful writing.
Great.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to put up some more questions too. Here we go. Belinda's here. Hey, Belinda. She says, do you name your characters after family members?
I don't. What I've done is when I write, I will write the characters that I'm channeling if it's someone that's personal, and then I'll change it later. But so that I can just sort of continue to focus my attention to the details of how I think a character is going to respond or interact or whatever the situation is. I might keep them as like their real name, and then I'll change it later.
Perfect. I'm going to put up some comments from your read. We have Lisa says, wow, sounds great. Thank you for reading to us. Virgie says, thank you, Melissa, for reading. It was awesome.
Yay.
Karen says, very intriguing. And Carol, hey, Carol, she says she loved it. 1 second. I love putting up these comments. Dana says, sounds good. Love the live reads. Awesome. And Karen also says, thank you. Lori says, your writing is very descriptive. I enjoyed it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. You have a very engaged audience. This is awesome.
I know. I love these people. They, it's because of them that we love to write. So I love them, the support they give us and sharing our work. I want to know if you can take us through I know you do work full-time also.
Yes.
How do you manage to squeeze in writing? Do you have like a routine that you do?
Daily? I do daily because if I do every so often, then I sort of feel like I lost my, like when I commit, I commit until it's done. So I set my alarm for 5 a.m. every day. I can't say that I get up every time at 5 a.m. It might be, 6:15, but at least I try. But I do write because I work remotely, so I work from home. So I literally can go from like my inside office to this is where I'm sitting right now is my work office in my backyard. And so I can literally just go from one to the other very quickly. So I'll write for like 3 hours and then go to work in the hall. But yeah.
It's a nice.
But I definitely right. And I don't try to do it later because I've lost sort of the flow. So like my mind just sort of knows like when I get up, I've got my coffee ready. And I get coffee and I go to my office with my dogs and we hang out for a couple hours.
And I like the fact that you split the two. You have your work, your full-time job at one office, and then your actual writing books. Yes. It's a different setting, different surroundings. I like that. And it puts you in the mindset of what job you're supposed to be doing, which I love.
Exactly. I will say I have tried to write out here because I was like, oh well, my family's away, like they're eating, they whatever. And if I've tried it out here, I lose all sort of
Yeah.
creativity. I feel like it just sort of like sucks right
And
out. It's like this is my work, and it's just sort of like I very much
I love
separate
that.
them.
Now, when you do write, do you have to have complete silence,
Yeah.
or are you one that can write with background noise or music?
I the second book that I wrote is there's a lot of country music inspiration. And so I have like a 3 hour playlist that I just keep looping. So I will listen to that. But if I turn on the TV or anything like that, I will get distracted. But the music and the country music, it's funny because like I'll start to have, I'll hear like a verse and I'm like, oh my God, that's brilliant. Just like it sort of like starts to spark things. So that's pretty cool. But otherwise, like I can't listen to actually any other kind of music other than country music while
Yeah,
I'm
I have to
doing
have
it.
silence. I can't have any kind. Once in a while, there might be like the TV on, on low, but I have to just tune it
Uh-huh.
out. I have to tune it out, but it,
Yeah.
it, it takes a couple of times, like, okay, focus, focus, focus.
Yeah.
You know? Okay, your first book, your debut, takes place in New York City. Your other two books that you've written, where do they take place?
So they all take place in
Okay.
upstate New
Oh,
York.
okay.
I grew up in Saratoga Springs, which is about 3 hours north of New York City. It's like about 40 minutes north of Albany, the capital. And so like in the base of the Adirondacks, I went to school in Plattsburgh, so near the Canadian border. So like just like along sort of like that northeast side of New York. So all the stories, is interesting. The second book, I said it has a really country music flair, and I was going to write it down in Nashville, and I've been to
Love
Nashville several
Nashville.
times to do research, and I love Nashville, but I don't live there. So I didn't feel like I was going to do it justice, and I was going to I worry, this just was, I know it's my personality of just someone saying, you know what, the road doesn't go that way, right? Like I didn't want it to be so literal that I was in Nashville, but there are other places where you can go and they like country
Mhm.
music. So I wrote it. I made a fictitious town that's built after where I grew up in Saratoga, and it's all
Okay.
country music and it's all the things I want it to be. And so I really needed my husband to say to me, it's totally fine if it's not like a
Yeah.
specific place. It's since I'm the author, I can make it whatever I want. And I almost needed permission because I was like, well, if it's after Saratoga Springs, then it's got to be Congress Park and like
Yeah.
Caroline Street and all these places where I grew up. So I really needed like him to sort of give me the permission to just sort of like be free about it, which again I think that's my finance part of me that's sort of saying, but no, it's got a tick and tie and things have to sort of like work and be literal, and so I do have
I
to
like
kind
the
of
fact
shed
that you
some of
did the
those things.
fictitious town, because my last book took me to places that I'd never been to, and I had to do the research. This book that I'm writing now is part of it is in a fictitious town because it's based on a town in Montana, but the town didn't have all the
Uh,
elements that I wanted for the story. So, like you, I'm making a fictitious town based on an actual town, but we can kind of,
right.
spread it out a little bit and make it our world. Um, I really enjoyed my
Exactly.
last book, though. It took me to Alaska. It took me to where else did it say? New York and Connecticut, and I did enjoy researching them. Now I want to go there, but I
Yeah.
had to, even though I'm a panster, if this makes sense, I had to make the story fit around part of those towns. And yeah,
Of
so with
course.
this, I got more, more leeway, more my characters do, should I say? So, but it's interesting. It's
Right.
interesting what path we take when writing a book, and I find that very interesting that you did that, and I think you made the right choice. I do. I want to put up a
Thank you.
question here from
Thank you.
Connie. She is asking, "What is your favorite thing to do when you're not writing?"
Oh, I love so when it's not 20
Oh,
out, I love
me
kayaking.
too.
I
I
I
love
do.
kayaking.
I absolutely love it. We recently I shouldn't say recent during COVID, we it somehow worked out that we were able to get a very small sort of like second home cabin
Nice.
thing that's on a lake. And it just was sort of a weird setup. And but I was able to have a kayak, and I was like, I took up kayaking, and it's like
I
I will
love
go
it.
for hours, and I will just, like I said, I listen to an audible. Like I used to listen to music, and now I'm like listening to like a book, and I'm like, I can't come in yet
Done.
because my
There you go.
chapter's not done. So it's super fun. So I do love kayaking. I just recently started taking Pilates, which I do love, and I've decided to become a Pilates instructor. So I'm going to be doing that. So now I'm all of a sudden immersed in anatomy classes, and learning about different parts of the body, obviously, but then just the exercises and why we do things in sort of like terms, which again is completely out of my element, but I'm completely engaged because I do really like to learn new things, and so that are different, sort of outside my wheelhouse, and so it's been super cool so far. So I'm excited about that. It'll take me probably about 6 months to 9 months to complete the course, but it is it's super
Exciting.
fun. So I'm excited.
So not only do you write you have a full-time job, you're writing on the side, and now you're going to be an instructor.
And now
How
I'm
many
gonna be an
hours do you
instructor.
sleep?
So yeah, no, I still get
You have
7, 8 hours of
3 days.
sleep at
You
night.
fill up those days to the max.
I do. I am very efficient. I do try to cram stuff in
I
for
love that.
sure. It's when your kids go off, right? Like my son doesn't want anything to do with me. He's just sort of, he's a senior in high school. So he's living his best life. My daughter's away, and my husband works outside the house. So it's sort of it's me and my
I love
dogs.
that. I am going to put this question. You did answer it somewhat, but I wanted to know. Elaine Sapp is asking, do you have a preference where you like to write? You mentioned that you have a separate working area. Do you ever write away from that area,
Yes.
maybe in a coffee shop, or is it always right in that space?
It's just I kind of like lock in when I'm in that space, and I find it hard. It will take me twice as long, if not longer, to sort of get out a paragraph or a chapter if I'm not sort of in that space. That's what I have found.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I've tried writing at a coffee shop, and there's just too many distractions. And one of the coffee shops that I like,
Yeah.
of course, is Barnes and Noble. They have a nice coffee shop there, but I'm too busy with all the other
Too
books
many
for
just
sale.
chopping. Yeah,
I'm not getting
exactly.
any of my work done. There's just too many distractions. So I'm like you. This is where I write. This is my loft. This is where I like to write, and this is my space. Anywhere else, if I go
Perfect.
downstairs, I have not little anymore, a puppy Jack that is just impossible to do anything. You say you have pets. What kind of dogs do you have?
So I have two dogs. I have they're both poodle mixes. They're COVID dogs. That was the only, since I was going to be home, that was when we decided that we were going to have dogs. So I've got two. They're about 20 pounds each. One's a redhead and one's black.
Nice. They're
Yeah, they're super fun. They're very fun. They're definitely my companions. They're
Does
my
he go in the
office mates for
kayak?
sure. So the one would, if I let him. The other one probably would jump out. So they're like
Yeah, I
they're
think
little.
I think Jack,
Uh,
my Brittany, would just tip it over because he loves the water. I can't keep Jack
yeah.
out of the water, so if I try and put him in a kayak, he's just going to go jump right in the water and probably tip me in with him. So I
Well, I've seen your pictures online of where he is
oh
destroying
my
like your
God,
bathroom and
he's
like your
turned a year older. I mean,
your
I love him to
magazines.
bits. Don't get me wrong, but his energy level is through the roof. It's been 17
Yeah.
years since we recently lost our other Brittany. She was 17 years old or 16, and she was the last puppy we had. So this is like 16 years later, we get Mr. Jack, and it's like, oh my God.
Oh, I
What
forgot.
did
Yeah.
I do? But he's a character. And I post about him all the time. I whine about him, I laugh at him, I make jokes about him, but he's just, I should write a book about him. I really should, because I
You
really should.
really, yeah. One of your
The
characters named the
Adventures of
Jack.
Jack. I want to pop up some names I didn't see earlier that have joined us just to say hello. But we have Margie here. She says hi. And we also have Katie Morrison. She says hello. I just want to pop them up, let them know that I acknowledge they are here. And then Caroline Painter is here. She says hello. Um, Lisa asked, I'm not sure if we covered this, so I'm going to pop it up. She's asking if your 3 books are a trilogy. Do they all connect?
So the first one I thought I knew is sort of standalone as it is in the 90s, but in the second book I have planted the sister Jamie into this book, which is 30 years later. So I could potentially, I did it specifically so that I could tie them together, and then continue sort of down the I thought I knew. I could do that because you could see Nicole and others in the book 30 years later, so it could be interesting to kind of go back to that world and those characters and sort of see them present day.
Okay. Another, I mentioned to you about the hardest part for me to write is the first paragraph of the book. The other one is a blurb on the back of the book. That I
I'm
write
dreading that. I'm
I
dreading
write
that.
my own, and to condense, normally an 80,000 word manuscript into what, 250, 300 pages, to me is, without giving anything away, but also to pull the readers in, to me, I find it tremendously
Yeah.
hard. Now, did you write the blurb on your book? Did you find?
I did, and it was very hard. It's extremely hard. It's extremely hard, and I will tell you that I would much prefer to write 90,000 words than to write those 200 words. I mean, like I still, like, I haven't written it yet for the because of where I am in sort of the still work in progress, sort of like with beta readers and editing and all that good stuff with the second book. And that's what haunts me, quite honestly, is just writing that between that and a query letter, like sort of it's the same blurb that you kind of use like in the letter. And so that those
Yeah,
definitely haunt me.
that's until my cover designer says, Tina, I need a blurb. I put it up and like, okay, how long do you need? Next week will be good. I'm like, oh man, I put it
Yeah,
up.
exactly. Because then it's like you want to be writing, like you don't want to be like this is sort of the technical writing part, like, which isn't as fun.
And I mean, I do find that I'm not going to say I find them easier, but I'm getting them done in a short amount of time. I remember, I can't remember which book it was, but for days I was not happy with what I had. And then all of a sudden I'm able to write them in a day, but it does take a day. Nothing else will get done. And I told my husband, I am not coming down. I'm not going downstairs. Blurb is written. You will not see me. And it will take me all day. I think one of them did take me half a day, which was really surprised the heck out of me. But for me, they are a challenge. They are a challenge. And people say, well, you could hire somebody. And nothing against people that write blurbs. I admire your work, but they don't read the book. Many of these people that write blurbs don't read the book. And I'm sorry, but I need you to read my book if you're going to write about it. And that's just my personal opinion. So
I've seen a lot of books now where they actually don't have sort of the blurb on the back. It's all just quotes of like how awesome it is. And that doesn't really tell me anything, which I don't actually, then I almost put that book down because I'm like, you can't even tell me about like, what am I going to read?
I do put quotes of reviews and stuff inside the book, but I put myself into the reader's point of view. When I go into Barnes and Nobles, for example, I pick up a book, the cover appealed to me. So of course I want the cover to be great. The next thing I do is I flip it over to read the back, to read what it's about. And if it's just a bunch of reviews, I put it back down. I do. Yeah. And
exactly.
That's my personal thing. I want to, intrigue me, sell me this book,
Exactly. Yeah, you got to work a little,
So I'm also intrigued too that is it the third book that's about country music or the second one?
The second and the third book. So they take place in Laney Springs. So if I've got any Lainey Wilson fans out there, so I'm a huge fan of her. So I named the town Laney Springs. And so throughout there's sort of teasers of whether it's country music artists, their songs, there could be lyrics in there, that sort of dialogue. So it's sort of all interwoven into it. The male main character was a 90s country music star. And so and he's the love interest of this woman that grew up in Laney Springs. And so they have a relationship, but there's some like really interesting things that I, did for research that have to do with equine therapy. where you're using a horse with a licensed psychologist, where you actually do equine therapy, to kind of, work through your issues. And so it's sort of like that idea of like, you're walking, you're talking, versus just sort of sitting down and sort of laying it all out there. And so it's just another, as I was saying, sort of like about the model mugging, it's a way to sort of shine a light on very interesting, ways that people can, get help or work through things or connect, just trying to give some really interesting perspectives.
I love
and
country
ideas.
music. That's pretty much the only music I listen to. I love Luke. I saw
Awesome.
Luke Bryan in concert and Chris Young. Great experience.
Mm.
Have you been to many concerts? Country western?
I do. I will say that that's one of the things I do indulge in with, and mostly with my kids. So they still will take, they still will go with me to country
Sweet.
shows. Just the other day, I went to go see Cody Johnson. I've already got my tickets for Riley Green, Luke Combs,
Oh my
Morgan
goodness.
Wallen. Already, yeah,
Goodness,
I'm already sort of like, stacking the deck for the
Oh, I love
year.
that. When I was younger, I used to love line dancing. Do you still do? I used to love.
Oh, that was one of the things I did when I went to Nashville. I was like, I have
I
to learn how to
love.
line dance. So my daughter
I
and I
haven't.
went to a line dancing class. I'm like, I need it
I
for
haven't done it
research.
in quite a number of years. I love Tennessee and Nashville. I went there about a couple of years ago for the first time with my son and his family. We rented a cabin out there. Beautiful, beautiful state. Beautiful state. It really is.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
but this has been an
Absolutely.
amazing chat. I'm very excited for your next
I'm
two
so
books.
excited.
But before we sign off, I do
Thank
have
you.
one final question for you that I ask all the authors, and that
Okay.
is, what one piece of advice could you give to an aspiring writer that would love to become a published author?
I would just say believe in yourself, and just keep writing. Like those are the two things I think, just be disciplined about it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be great. Um, it just has to be words on a page. You can always edit later. And believe in what you're doing. Because if you don't have, sort of the reason why, then I would say that you will lose steam pretty quickly because you do need to have the discipline to get to the end of a book and then to go through the
Yeah,
whole process. Um, but I would definitely say, well, two things, I guess. Don't self-edit before you even get
perfect.
it on the page. And just be disciplined about it. Carve out the time because, like I said, it has become very therapeutic for myself, and so and I feel like just listening to you, Tina, also just our conversation. I mean, I think people start to find that, and so just go with it. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't.
There you go.
Just go for
Perfect.
it.
I love it. And you are doing a giveaway, so thank you for that. If you want to tell the
I am.
readers what that is.
Yeah. So I'll do. I'm going to do a signed copy of the paperback of the book, as well as what am I trying to say? A handcrafted, crocheted
I love that.
sunflower
So
bookmark
cute.
that goes in the.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. This has been fantastic. I will go ahead and announce the winner in my group this evening, and I will tag you, and I will have them
Awesome.
reach out to you to give you the details, the shipping address, etc. And I am doing my regular
Yes.
giveaway that I do, as many of you know, and that is the $5 Amazon gift card. And in order to be entered into that, all you need to do is share this video, share it in your favorite group, share it on your homepage, share whatever you like, but do tag me so I know that you shared it, and you'll be entered into the drawing for a $5 Amazon gift card. And Melissa, when your next book comes out, we got to get you back on. I'd love to see you.
I can't wait. I
You
can't
have a
wait.
release date
I'm
or
so
something, because
excited.
it's a little bit of a wait to get on the show. But I'd love to have you back and get caught up with you and
As soon as I know, I
see
will
how
let
things
you
are
know.
going.
I'm so
Okay.
excited.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful, Tina. Thank you. Thank you to everybody. This is great. I'm
Thank you,
very excited.
everyone, for joining us this evening. I will see you back in the group, and all have a great night.